My message for today is Stay the Course. So this past Thursday was our last day of school this year. And I think a round of applause is in order for that. Oh my goodness, I can't believe we went through a whole year of school. When we started, it was a completely uncharted territory. Everything was a little bit stressful because we'd never done it before. And even though we only have school in person 3 days a week, each week felt longer than a week. But here we are, and it's already over. I'm a little bit sad. For our last day of school, we met at school as usual in the morning. We did some reflection activities. All the kids were able to give each other awards for most likely to give a compliment behind somebody's back, or most likely to live on a farm with dozens of animals, or most courageous, those sort of things. And then we all, including the families and staff, everybody at our school went on a big camping trip to Golden Gate Canyon State Park. And it was so much fun. We had just finished a survivor quest where they learned all the basics of surviving in the wild, including how to make a fire, how to make a shelter, first aid, how to collect water when there's no water sources around, and also learning more about their own identity, because for human beings, identity is part of survival, to really understand who you are and your place in the world. So this was kind of the culmination of all of that, and it was great. I think until this moment, my experience of camping has always been the kids run around and throw sticks and have lots of fun, while the grown-ups pitch the tents, start the fire, make all the food, clean up everything, take down the tents, and it's fun, but it's a lot of work. But this time, we had 40 people at a campsite, and the adults mostly just sat back and talked with each other. It was amazing. The kids set up the tents, they prepped the food, they made the fires, helped a little bit here and there, but it was really fun. And then at the end of the night, one thing that we did was we reflected on a couple of questions. One question was, what are you proud of this year? Or what is one way you can see that you've grown? And then, on the other hand, what is something that you maybe regret from this year, or you would want to do differently next year? And they had an opportunity to share the thing that they were proud of, and then we threw the thing that they regret into the fire. So it reminded me a little bit of like New Year's Eve in our faith tradition. Rather than going out and partying, most of us are reflecting on the year, offering it to God, making new determinations for the new year, and sometimes literally burning those confessions and things. So it was kind of funny because I had this similar kind of like New Year's experience, but it's only May. But it made me think, actually, this is not a bad time to reflect on our year so far. We're almost halfway through 2022. So it's a good time to evaluate how our year is going based on what kind of goals or inspirations or ideas we had at the beginning of the year. So in line with that, I want to talk about Stay the Course. And I'm going to start with a Bible verse. This is from Psalm 119, titled, "Your word is a lamp to my feet." Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are those who keep his testimonies, who seek him with their whole heart, who also do no wrong, but walk in his ways. You have commanded your precepts to be kept diligently. Oh, that my ways may be steadfast in keeping your statutes. Then I shall not be put to shame, having my eyes fixed on all your commandments. I will praise you with an upright heart when I learn your righteous rules. I will keep your statutes. Do not utterly forsake me. And I actually want to share another version of this. This is a more traditional interpretation, but I also found an interpretation from the Message Bible, and I feel that in some ways it's a little bit more practical feeling. So I want to go over this again, but in the Message Bible version. You're blessed when you stay on course, walking steadily on the road revealed by God. You're blessed when you follow his directions, doing your best to find him. That's right, you don't go off on your own. You walk straight along the road he set. You, God, prescribe the right way to live. Now you expect us to live it. Oh, that my steps might be steady, keeping to the course you set. Then I'd never have any regrets in comparing my life with your counsel. I thank you for speaking straight from your heart. I learned the pattern of your righteous ways. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. Don't ever walk off and leave me. So at the beginning of the year, you may have made, some people like to get really detailed in their New Year's resolutions. They're like, I'm going to lose 15 pounds, or I'm going to make this much money by the end of the year. Some people get really detailed, and some people are more general. I want to improve my health. I want to spend more time with family and friends. Some people really don't like the idea of doing resolutions at all. But my guess is no matter which category you fall under, you probably have some sort of hopes or expectations that this year would be better than the last. Maybe your goal for this year was to not get COVID again. Maybe your goal for this year is to get a new job. Maybe it's simply to spend less time stressing and spend more time having quality time with your friends or family. Maybe you had a goal to trust God more, or to pray more, to invest more into your relationship with God. Maybe it's to lose weight. Maybe it's to get rid of some old habits. But whatever your goals happen to be, and there's a lot of people in this room, so I don't expect that anybody has the exact same goals, but whatever your goals happen to be, most likely they have to do with two things: family and relationships, and faith. Maybe you don't see the connection immediately, but I think that most people, their motivation to want to make more money is to be able to provide for their family better. If they want to lose weight, it's so that they can enjoy more quality time, have a longer life, spend more time with the people that they love. Not just because it's fun to lose weight. That's never the case, right? Maybe if your goal is to spend more quality time with family, we could recognize that actually we feel God most when we're in quality relationships with our family, because God is substantially present in our family. And if our goal is to drop harmful habits, it's because we know intuitively that we are more free to live God's purpose for our life. So whatever the details of what your hopes or desires might be, I think you can always tie it back to deepening relationships with family and deepening our relationship with God. And actually, I really think that these two can even be combined into one, because God is substantialized in the family. That's God's design, right? God's original design was to become manifested in the family relationships. But here we are in May. We're going into the summer months, and I know that for myself, I actually didn't really consider I didn't spend time thinking about my New Year's goals for quite a while now. I've just been kind of plugging along, doing the things that I need to do. And it's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to get bogged down in the daily challenges of life. It's easy to not be able to see the whole picture, right? It's easy to not see the forest because of all the little trees. And especially as we hit summer. Summer is a busy time. I remember when Mike and I took the marriage course, like 5 years ago now, and this really stuck out to me. They talked about how in the course of your married life, you go through the different seasons. The winter is kind of like before you meet that person. It's a little bit lonely, cold, but underneath the surface, you're preparing yourself. You're collecting the knowledge or the nutrients that you need to be able to be a good spouse. And then the springtime is when you meet that person and you can fall in love and you can learn about each other and try new things together. Everything is fresh and exciting. You might have your first kid and it's all new and awesome. Fall is your kids are getting older. They become more responsible for themselves. They don't depend on you as much. And you can start to relax a little bit or just enjoy the fruits of your labor. You get to enjoy the harvest of all the investment that you made and appreciate the life that you've created with your spouse. But summer is crazy. Summer in your relationship is when you might have multiple kids. You might have a couple in diapers. You might have some that are going to school. You've got different activities you've got to drive them to. The house is noisy. The house is messy. You don't get enough sleep at night. It can be fun, but it can be crazy. Everybody tells you, oh, these are the days you're going to miss. You know, enjoy these days while you have them because soon they'll be gone. And I believe that. I'm sure it's true. But right now it's crazy. So that was just one example of what the summer season is like. But it's just to show that in the summer there's a lot happening. And when there's a lot happening, we can lose sight of our goals or of our purpose. We can feel overwhelmed by challenges, and we can sometimes feel weighed down by the difficulties. We have a number of books in our faith that have words from our founder, which are categorized by topic. A lot of these topics are things like gratitude, and prayer, meeting with God, heart. There's also a section called trials, suffering, and ordeals. And to be honest, I usually never open those sections. I kind of want to avoid those topics. But there's value in finding God's words on those topics when we're in the midst of those trials or suffering or ordeals. I think sometimes I'd like to feel like, oh, no, I'm not suffering. Or I try to, I don't even want to touch that. But even I have to admit, sometimes it's hard. And when it's hard, rather than avoiding the hardness or trying to pretend that it's not hard, I actually find it more helpful to embrace it and find God's wisdom in those difficulties. So I found a couple of quotes from this section on trials, suffering, and ordeals that I want to share with you. This is from our founder, Reverend Moon. When the degree and scope of difficulties of what you are doing is expanded, your effort to overcome them will be fruitful. Just as after the toil of summer months, the plants are fruitful in the fall. Don't be discouraged when you must go through great difficulties. Your success will be measured in proportion to the degree of difficulties through which you go through. Your success will be measured in proportion to the degree of difficulties which you go through. In the summer months, if you've toiled very hard on your crops, the the harvest will be more bountiful. And if you work with this kind of heart and attitude, you can never be exhausted. Here's another one. You know you will go through winter, but you must also envision spring's coming. Your job is to make yourself a solid seed so that when the spring comes, God will cast you onto very fertile ground and you will be fruitful. So it's good to have some perspective when we're going through trials or difficulties, because without the perspective, it's very easy to just see things from my point of view. This is hard right now. I don't like how this feels. I wish this wasn't happening to me. But with that kind of perspective, it's very hard to gain the momentum or the energy or the power to go through it and to overcome it. But when we can see from God's perspective that I'm learning, I'm growing, God knows that this is hard, but I'm being provided with an opportunity to grow and overcome so that more blessings can come in the future. I can do more for God, that my children don't have to go through the same difficulties that I'm going through. So in this case, I'm mostly talking about this year, kind of like a check-in for this year. Maybe you can think about where you're at right now. Can you remember back to January 1st? What was I thinking about at that time? But actually, even more than this year, I want to talk more about the course of our life. Life is long, and there are many ups and downs. Along the path of life, there are many things that will vie for your attention, that will distract you. And there are many different paths that we can possibly take in our life, right? We have free will and choice, and we can pick which direction we want to go. However, not all of these paths will satisfy us. Many of them will not. So I'd like for us to just take this time to really refocus on not only what this year's goals are, but remember, what are my priorities of my life? What is the core of my being? Who is God calling me to be? And where am I on that path? It's okay if you're not as far as you want to be. But the most important thing is that we're taking a step, that we're making progress on that path. So let's check in with ourselves to make sure that we're heading in the direction that we want to go. I was thinking about when I was on my missions program, and during that time, a lot of people are inspired. We're working for God, we're praying every day, we're reading God's words every day. And at that time, it feels like we're all in this together, we're all on the same path, we're all going the same direction. But that time is very short in the span of our whole life. What happens after that? What happens when we go to college? What happens when we come into the springtime of our relationship and we find the person who's going to be our spouse? What happens when we have children? What happens when those children leave us as empty nesters? Right? There's so many different facets to the human experience and human life and our journey. So it's one thing to be able to be like, yes, I love God, and I'm going to live my life for Him for a year or two when you're doing a missions program, and that's the whole thing. But how can we maintain that heart in all the different facets of our life, along the whole journey? It might not look the same as it does when you're on a missions program. It might not look the same when you're in college as it does when you're married and you have 4 kids. The path will feel different. It might look a little bit different. But how do we stay the course the whole way? So that's just my reminder to myself, but also for all of us to check in with my heart, check in with God. Who am I? Where are you calling me to? And let's make sure that I'm on that path, not some other path. So that is my simple message for today. Welcome to almost June. I hope you all have an amazing summer and do many fun things and do all the crazy things. It might be a crazy time, but at the same time, I hope that you can keep God at the center and your priorities at the center. Keep your family, God and family at the center. So please join me in prayer. Most beloved Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you so much for a beautiful day and for bringing all of us together as your children. We're really grateful for your words, which are a light to our path. You've given us the formula. You've shown us the way to walk. We've had Jesus walk in front of us. We've had our true parents walk in front of us. And so there is a path for us to follow, and it still doesn't make it easy. But God, we know the way. I pray that we can continually check in with our hearts, check in with you, and make sure that even if we're moving slowly, that we're moving in the right direction. God, we invite you into our days. We invite you into our life. We want to reflect you more fully and more completely and more clearly to the people in our life so that your presence can be felt far and wide, Heavenly Parent. Thank you so much. We offer this time to you and this message, and I pray this in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick of Blessed Show family. Amen and adieu. Thank you so much, everybody.